very good evening, Dr. Saini, and a good morning at your end.
Good morning and good evening, yes.
Thank you so much for your time. It's a pleasure meeting you again. I would like to start this brief informal session, me asking questions, you answering them, and giving us some guidance, being at one of the prestigious universities, and a big mentor, not just for me, but for a lot of other students across Canada. So if you don't mind, please share your journey in the education sector and the pivotal moments that shaped your career.
Well, that's a very good question to start with, Vandana. I would say my journey, academic journey, really started when I, as a very young man growing up in India, very young means about 18, 19-year-old, I started to abandon my original plan of going into Indian Army as an officer and decided to take a turn towards academics, where I was at the university and decided to go into a master's degree. And that's, I would call that as a pivotal moment of essentially a very high level shift in my own career aspirations. And then my journey has been, I can't be more grateful for how wonderful this journey has been. McGill is my 7th university, 6 in Canada, 1 in Canberra, all top universities. I've had a fantastic career in the academia. This is the 3rd university where I'm president and vice chancellor. So it's been a really journey to be truly grateful for. What were the pivotal moments? All the pivotal moments, and they've been quite a few, and they have been about me essentially stepping outside my comfort zone and doing something that at the moment sounded difficult and even scary, and then paid off. An example would be I had a fantastic job offer from Chemical company in India when I finished my master's degree, and instead I ended up accepting an offer to go and do a PhD in Australia. So, at a time when I just wanted to settle down and so on, and I had no intentions of living abroad, taking that chance to go to Australia to do a PhD was a big chance, but it paid off. I finished my PhD in Australia, had a job offer in Australia, a permanent job offer, and a 1-year postdoctoral fellowship in Canada. But I thought, well, let's experience the world and see another part of the world. And I took that 1-year opportunity instead of a permanent job. And rest, they say, is essentially history. It just 1 year led to now it is 42 years in Canada for me. Another one, a pivotal moment, and I'll stop there, was when I was looking for more permanent jobs after that postdoc, and my career was really taking off. I had all kinds of interviews. I think there were 6 interview calls at the same time in various universities, and one of them was at University of Montreal, which is a French language university, and I didn't know a word of French. And they offered me the job. I don't know why. It definitely wasn't because of my good looks. I thought, well, that's a fantastic opportunity to learn another language and learn about another culture. And I withdrew from all other interviews and came to Montreal. And that was the beginning of the career that I described. It was just really, it's been fantastic from that point on. And I became fluent in French and spent 18 years here in Montreal before we moved to our next step. So in short, I would say my career is marked by a propensity for taking bold chances and making something of them.
That's amazing. And I think that is such a big learning for all students that come to Canada, thinking of making a career and choosing Canada as a country to settle and establish themselves. So taking chances, there is struggle, but if you persist, I think victory can be achieved by anybody and everybody. And I get this a lot, Canada has great institutions. A lot of students are giving us feedback that there are no jobs, but that's not true. And I'm a witness of that as well. I moved to Canada as an immigrant and landed up in a successful university with a great opportunity and a launchpad to embark on a business platform today. So with your journey, Dr. Saini, can you share your perspective on the evolving trends and opportunities that you're seeing in higher education?
Yeah. So, one way to understand where the trends are, there are many ways to look at it. And one way I would look at it is to actually talk to the students. What are they looking for in education? And, as you know, in my line of work, I get to meet a lot of students and I talk to them a lot. You and I have worked together, so you know how I am with students. And when I talk to students, they say many things, but there are three things that bubble up to the top. They want experiential learning. That's one. Second, they want interdisciplinary education. And the third, they want global experience. Canadians want to go abroad and experience the world. Students from elsewhere want to come to Canada and experience Canada, and so on. And often they end up going to more than 2 or 3 countries before they settle down somewhere. So those are three key things that I believe are going to drive the nature of education going forward. And more universities are stepping up to address those needs that students are expressing. The other thing that is changing, and it's changed dramatically since the arrival of pandemic in 2020, and that is the nature of learning. The role of online has changed dramatically. Essentially, within a span of a few months at the start of the pandemic, changes were made that otherwise would have taken probably 10 years to do. And those changes have endured. And they have matured also. I mean, the online learning today is not the same as it was in March 2020. It's much more sophisticated, and the experience is much richer. And how that is being embedded into your day-to-day learning on campus is altering the nature of education. I would hasten to say one thing, that for research-intensive universities in particular, universities like McGill, online delivery and any form of remote delivery is not a substitute for on-campus learning. It is an extension to on-campus learning, not a substitute for it, because the value proposition of universities like McGill is actually the rich environment on the campus in which you learn.
Yeah.
So it's become an additional. It's a bit like, when the calculators came, they replaced the slide rule and so on, and the overhead projections replaced the blackboard and etc. So this is in a much more dramatic sense the same kind of introduction of a technology. Of course, take that to a next step of the integration of AI into learning and teaching. That's another step that is coming like a runway train, and that too, in my view, will become just another tool in our toolbox, rather than a substitute for the way we have taught. The last thing I would say is that students today are expected to be much more of active participants in their learning experience, and they're stepping up to do exactly that. The old model, when I won't say when you went to university because you're much younger than me, but certainly when I went to university, the model was that professor was this venerable fountain of knowledge, and we sat around the professor and we drank from that fountain, right? That's no longer true. Professors still have a lot of knowledge, but it's not the same fountain model that you sit around. Mm-hmm. It's more that students today come already well informed about a lot of subjects. Let me step back. Students come to the classroom informed about a lot of subjects. They may not necessarily be well informed, because for every bit of information there is out there for students to imbibe, there is perhaps 10 times as much misinformation and disinformation and questionable information out there. Mm-hmm. So they come informed, but they don't necessarily come well informed. And that is where the role of professor has become pivotal now. So the role of professor today is to make sense of all that information that's out there, much of which students bring in their heads, and they will layer more of that information when they leave the classroom on what already exists. And the professor's role is to help make sense out of that information, to separate good information from bad information, to even damaging information. And there is a lot of damaged information there. And in that sense, learning how to learn has become even more important part of university education than it used to be. It was always important. You come to university not just simply to pick up the bits and pieces of knowledge and just go home. You actually also learn how to learn autonomously. And that part has become very important, and the professor has a big role to play in that.
Absolutely. And I think with McGill's prestigious ranking and the quality of professors and the research facilities you spoke about, I think it is by far one of the topmost university across the globe, and in Canada, of course. Dr. Saini spoke about experiential learning, and we also hear a lot about technological advancement today, and which has almost become very important for every student to be a part of it. So with the rapid pace of this advancement, there is a growing demand. There's a growing demand of skills in fields like artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and data science. So how is McGill University integrating emerging technologies into their academic programs to enhance this learning experience?
Well, let me start by first saying that the focus at universities like McGill is on preparing students to be career ready and life ready rather than just ready for a job that they will get upon graduation. I think it's important to keep that in mind. McGill is not a trade college, so our job is not to produce people who could just walk out of the university and start performing a particular skilled activity. They will do that, but that's not where the focus is. The focus is on the long-term career of a student and how they're going to go through the life. So making a person fit for an entire career and entire life as a useful and impactful citizen of the world. That's what we do at McGill. With regard to technology, AI, generative AI, the data sciences, and other forms of information technologies, that has become critically important part of today's learning in the universities. Now, McGill, I don't know how well you know about McGill's commitment to artificial intelligence. We are in the research and teaching of around AI and data sciences. We have emerged as among the global leaders. Montreal is perhaps one of the top 3 places in the world where to come and learn about AI, do research in the field, be involved in innovation and entrepreneurship. The number of companies that are being spun out of Montreal in AI area is mind-boggling at this point. And this is largely because of an organization that is a joint venture between McGill University and University of Montreal, 2 large universities in Montreal, and both of them very research intensive. And the organization called MILA, M-I-L-A. So this is the Quebec's Artificial Intelligence Institute. And that's located in the heart of Montreal, and it is causing a revolution in the city in the field of AI. So our commitment to technology is as a world leader. And another special feature of AI here is that it's not AI on its own, it's AI as it applies to different disciplines. Let's, for example, the intersection between AI and medicine and health sciences. AI and other aspects of engineering, AI and agriculture and environmental sciences, and so on. So that interdisciplinarity, it is woven into our teaching, learning, research, innovation of AI here in Montreal.
Amazing. Your second point amongst the 3 things you mentioned was interdisciplinary education. Yeah. In recent years, there has been increasing emphasis on the importance of interdisciplinary studies. How is the university adapting its curriculum and research initiatives to promote interdisciplinary collaboration? And how do you see this trend influencing the Canadian education landscape?
So McGill, in a very traditional sense, McGill is organized into 11 faculties that are disciplinary. They're based on the traditional disciplines from management to science and arts and so on. So we have that. But one increasingly significant aspect of McGill, like in many other universities, I wouldn't say that McGill is the only one doing it. It's a broader trend in higher education here in Canada, that those disciplinary silos are gradually melting away because the problems of today, let's say, look at climate change. And let me just speak about climate change as an example. And I mean, that example at McGill could apply to many other areas. The climate change and sustainability, the issues are so multidisciplinary that no particular discipline could successfully address any of those issues to come up with solutions. In fact, I would submit that no country could address the challenges that we face in the area of climate change and sustainability. It's the whole world that needs to get together. So that's how broad it is. That's a good example to pick for me to illustrate the point about McGill's involvement in interdisciplinarity. We recognize that you're going to need engineers, you're going to need scientists, you're going to need entrepreneurs, you're going to need people from agriculture, from forestry, from environmental sciences, from management, from policy making, and so on, humanities, to come together to address the issues of sustainability and climate change. So to achieve that, McGill's response to that is that we have, over the last year particularly, we have embarked on a major redevelopment of one of McGill's sites at a cost of close to $1 billion. Let me repeat that. About $1 billion, that's billion with a B, dollars, is being invested in repurposing an old hospital building that we had. That's a beautiful heritage building on the slopes of Mount Royal, just essentially at the back end of McGill campus. And that entire facility is being redeveloped. It's going to have around 500,000 square feet of space. It's a 5-year project, and it will create a location of laboratories, teaching spaces, social interaction spaces, and so on, multiple use spaces, where scientists and researchers and students and professors from a whole myriad of disciplines will converge. They will come and go in this co-working space to work on specific problems, to find solutions. And it's going to be one of the most exciting developments when it opens here at McGill. And anybody who's interested can actually go on McGill's homepage and search for a project called New Vic as in VIC. And you will get a lot of information on what we do in that area. So that is McGill's answer to perhaps the most complex interdisciplinary issues of our times. And once this facility opens, now we have over somewhere in the range of 250 researchers at McGill who are working on various aspects of sustainability and climate change and finding solutions to it. And all of them will come together. They won't reside in this space full time, but they will come to solve problems based on specific issues and work there for periods and move on as the problems are solved. And that this involves scientists from across the whole institution.
Oh, that's amazing. And a $1 billion site. I think when I visit Montreal next, I definitely would come and see it. Dr. Saini, Canada is a very popular study destination today, and it attracts, I think, majority of the international students look at Canada as their number one choice. And recently we have seen that although Canada is attracting the best talent, and of course McGill University's reputation ranking is by far the best, and it is one of the top 2 choices for high-achieving international students from across the globe. We've also seen that international student housing has become an issue, not just in Canada, but everywhere in the world. So just wanted to briefly hear from you, what measures has McGill taken to address this issue and make sure the students are safe and secure?
I think that's a very timely question, Vandana, and I'm glad you asked. Let me start in a different place where you want me to go, and then I'll go there. The problem of housing and that of insufficient support systems for international education has been caused by not necessarily the top universities. In fact, not at all by the top universities, but it's been caused by other players in the market who have come in and who have sought to, in many cases, make profit out of this surging demand for international education. So let me just be totally frank that that's where the problem comes from. And any impact that we're having on the students who want to come to top institutions like McGill is essentially a collateral impact of the excesses of some players in the market. And there are institutions, newer institutions that have sprung up where the enrollment of international students has surged like 15-fold, 16-fold, 17-fold without them having the adequate facilities of any kind to actually support that growth. That said, the students who are going to those institutions are not students who would want to come to McGill. So let me focus on McGill. McGill has a large complex of residences on our 2 main campuses in Montreal, our main campus downtown Montreal, as well as our agriculture and environmental sciences campus, which is located about 30 kilometers to the west in the small township of St. Anne de Bellevue. On both sites, we have modern, excellent student accommodation, and we guarantee accommodation to first-year international students and first-year students from anywhere, actually, for that matter. So while there is a lot of pressure on student accommodation in the city, because we have multiple institutions here in the city, our students are always able to find appropriate accommodation close to the university. And residential environments for students are also learning environments. They're well integrated into the into the learning experience of the university. So you get actually a very enriched experience even in your residences. In addition, those students who want to live outside in the private residences that are not owned and run by the university, there is plenty of accommodation available around the campus. Most of our incoming international students, they first like to live in the university residences, and as they become more familiar with the city, they then in the next year, second year or third year, they transition to private accommodation. And that is actually quite a nice thing too, because you end up experiencing a whole different way of living and become much more integral part of the city. So, and in terms of support for students, in whether it is support for their health, mental health, support for their integration into Canadian society, the support for their counseling on immigration and so on. We are among the leaders, not just simply in Canada, globally, in providing that care. And we invest heavily. Millions of dollars are invested in supporting students. So anybody who's looking to come to McGill should not even think about what you're reading in the newspapers and hearing on the radio and television. McGill has been an international university for almost 200 years now, and actually over 200 years. And we are very proud of the fact that we are Canada's most international university, and we attract the highest quality students. Our entrance marks for McGill are the highest among Canadian universities. So, and that happens because we provide an excellent experience both in the classroom and outside.
And that's very true. I agree, you attract the best talent, and we do get to see a lot of high achieving students doing wonderful things at McGill. There's also a question which comes up a lot for McGill University specifically. The students have seen the international tuition fee go high. It's increasing year after year, and I'm pretty sure it's based on the demand. We don't see enough reward for high achieving academic students coming from McGill. In fact, I would say it is Harvard of Canada, but it's not giving quality students reward for their hard work. Do you see any changes there for whether need-based or merit-based financial aid or scholarships being granted to international students?
Yes, we are. Now, first thing, let me say that yes, there's no question that McGill's ability to provide aid to international students is not a match for that at Harvard. There is roughly 20-fold difference in the size of endowment between Harvard and McGill. And if we even had half that endowment, we would probably be right up there with Harvard in providing our students financial support. But that said, McGill's tuition is roughly half that at Harvard. So that is in some ways, you get Harvard quality education and at a tuition that is much, much lower than that at Harvard or at actually many other comparable American universities. So that's a very indirect way that is a form of student aid, right? Are we doing something about it? Yes, of course. Every year we announce new scholarships that are available. I'll give you one example. McGill's McCall-McBain scholarships, which were put in place by a $200 million donation by John McCall-McBain and his wife, Marcy McCall-McBain, that established scholarships that cover full cost of education. Annually, 30 scholarships are awarded, and 1/3 of them go to international students. That opened to international students a year ago, and we continue to introduce more scholarships like that. Now, that scholarship is right up there at par with Rhodes scholarships and so on. So, and more scholarships of that nature are added annually.
Super. My last question, Dr. Saini. What are the upcoming careers you see in Canada where there is demand and international students should focus in that direction?
Let me actually address that in a different way than you probably are expecting. So I would recommend that students follow their interest, which means what is their heart? What do they want to do in their heart? And what do they feel their brain is particularly equipped to do? Now, there's a surge in employment, for example, in areas related to information technologies and AI and data sciences and so on. There is a surge in employment in the areas of medical and health-related disciplines and so on. So those are great opportunities. But at the same time, there are opportunities in virtually every field. And I always believe that if your heart says, I want to be a philosopher, don't go and chase the career as a nurse, for example, because you will probably not draw the satisfaction from that career that you would want to draw. Follow your heart and follow your brain. follow your natural aptitude. And if your brain and your heart are pointed in the same direction, you will see that your feet will take you there. And one more thing I would say, I have seen in my nearly half a century of career now, that students who manage to put themselves in the top 10% of any discipline, the rewards for them are absolutely amazing. So by all means, follow the trends if your heart and mind and brain align with trends, but at the same time, don't forget that there are other areas where you will find success if you manage to, if your heart is there and you manage to position yourself in the top students in that area.
Super, and I think I agree with that. Canada is a land of opportunities, a huge country, and it needs good professionals. So thank you, Dr. Saini, for your time today. Really appreciate it, and lovely seeing you and chatting with you. Thank you.
And it's always a pleasure, and pleasure is doubled because you gave me a chance to connect with students. That's one of my favorite things to do. So thank you very much.
Thank you, and have a great day today.